Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show where we grab a stack of sources, kind of mash them together, and look for that invisible thread, the one connecting things you thought were completely separate.
Hmm.
So today's mission, we're diving into material that covers everything from family traditions in India all the way to these big corporate change management models.
Right. Like the guy you'd see with a massive government tech project, maybe.
Exactly, like the Arkansas Medicaid enterprise system replacement mentioned in one source. Big stuff.
Yeah, it seems like a really odd pairing on the surface, doesn't it?
It really does.
But what our sources seem to reveal is one of those really powerful mechanisms in human behavior, often overlooked, I think.
Okay.
And it applies whether you're dealing with, a major psychological shift for one person or trying to manage a huge organizational transformation, the thing that seems to guarantee stability and success. It's actually the same thing. Intentional, repeated actions. It's about predictability and meaning. That's what turns potential chaos into something positive.
So we're looking for the ritualized blueprints, essentially, the patterns for success.
You could put it that way.
Yeah. Okay. So to figure this out, we pulled together materials on the psychology behind family rituals, the anatomy of commitment in relationships, how sharing good stuff boosts resilience.
And also the really formal frameworks, the ones used in organizational change management, or OCM.
Yeah. OCM.
And I think we really have to start by defining our terms here, because the power of ritual, it often gets missed because we mix it up with just, plain routine.
Okay, good point. Let's unpack that straight away.
Yeah.
The sources make a really critical distinction here.
They did.
A routine is just a simple repeated task, right? Like eating dinner at 7:30 every night.
Just the mechanics of it.
Exactly. But a ritual, that's a routine plus something more. It's got added layers.
Yeah.
Meaning coordination, significance.
Right. So it's the difference between just having dinner together and maybe saying a short shared prayer before you eat, or maybe having a dedicated, no phones check-in time during the meal.
Oh, okay.
That simple action turns the task eating into something symbolic, something that emotionally connects people.
And one source actually groups these personal rituals. It talks about three kinds.
Yeah, it breaks them down into sort of everyday rituals,
Yeah.
annual ones like holidays, and then the big life transition rituals.
Yeah.
Graduations, weddings, things like that.
Yeah, gotcha. And we've actually got some fascinating data on the psychological punch this carries. Specifically from a study looking at young adults in India.
Emerging adults, yeah,
Wow.
ages 18 to 25.
Right. And this is a period of life that's just inherently unstable, isn't it? You're moving out, starting jobs, figuring out who you are.
It's a massive developmental transition,
Yeah.
a real chasm, like you said. And the research was trying to pin down, well, what helps these young adults stay stable through all that? So they looked for connections between having meaningful family rituals and developing two really crucial personality traits:
Which were
assertiveness and self-compassion.
assertiveness and self-compassion. Interesting combo. And this is where the findings get really specific and honestly a bit surprising because the researchers didn't just look at if the family had rituals, they looked at what kind of rituals.
Exactly. They used this questionnaire, the Family Rituals Questionnaire, and it broke rituals down into three types:
Okay.
dinner time rituals, weekend rituals, and celebration rituals.
And the finding wasn't just like eat dinner together more.
No, not at all. It was the celebrations dimension,
Yeah.
the big family gatherings, holidays, maybe religious events, these coordinated things that showed a significant positive link specifically to an increase in assertiveness.
Wow. Celebrations linked to assertiveness. How does that work?
Well, the thinking is that these more formal celebrations, often tied to, deeper cultural or religious traditions, they tend to create an environment where open communication, expressing yourself, it's kind of expected, maybe even encouraged.
Ah, okay. So if you get comfortable speaking your mind, even respectfully disagreeing within that family ritual setting.
Right. Then you're likely better equipped later on to communicate clearly, stand up for yourself, maybe resist peer pressure.
That makes sense. But what about self-compassion? Where did that come from?
That was linked to the weekends dimension.
Weekends. So like regular Saturday morning routines or Sunday activity.
Exactly. Those predictable, recurring weekly practices. That's what significantly predicted an increase in self-compassion.
Okay. Define self-compassion for us quickly.
Sure. It's generally seen as having three parts: Self-kindness, so being nice to yourself when things go wrong.
Uh-huh.
Seeing your struggles as part of the common human experience, not just your failing.
Right.
And mindfulness, being aware of your feelings without getting totally overwhelmed by them.
Okay. So how do weekend rituals build that?
It seems to track with the idea that internal support mirrors external support. If your family environment during those regular, predictable weekend times is generally warm, supportive, maybe lower conflict,
Mm-hmm.
that supportive tone gets internalized. It shapes your inner voice. So when you face stress or failure later, you're more likely to treat yourself with that same kindness you experienced during those predictable, stable times.
So the intentional ritual, whether it's a big celebration or just a regular weekend thing, it acts like a psychological anchor.
Precisely. Especially during those really unstable developmental periods, it offsets the chaos a bit.
Okay, so if ritual stabilizes the individual, especially during change,
Mm-hmm.
how does it work in partnerships, in relationships?
Well, building on that, we looked at how sharing positive experiences, not just getting through tough times together, but actually sharing the good stuff, acts as a really powerful resilience mechanism.
Sharing enjoyment.
Yeah, there was this one study tracking middle-aged adults, and it found that on days when people actively shared their enjoyment about something positive that happened,
Mm-hmm.
they reported significantly more resilient thinking afterwards. They felt better equipped to handle future stress.
So it wasn't just being happy about the good thing, it was the act of sharing that happiness, that capitalization process, as some call it.
Exactly. The sharing itself amplifies the positive feeling, and it seems to act as a buffer. It kind of compensates for the negative impact of other stressors in their life.
Okay. And building on that, when we look specifically at relationship rituals, the sources pull out some key lessons, things that turn, the mundane into something more meaningful.
Yeah, there were four main lessons that stood out. The first one is about commitment.
Commitment, okay. And this is where we get some pretty unconventional examples, right?
Yeah, definitely. We tend to think of commitment rituals as, the big one-time thing, like a wedding.
Right.
But the sources bring up Simone de Beauvoir and Jean-Paul Sartre, the French intellectuals.
Ah, yes.
Instead of a traditional marriage, they apparently ritualize their commitment differently. They sign this contract, a pact, that only lasted 2 years.
Only 2 years.
Yeah. And then every 2 years, they'd meet and consciously decide whether to renew it. It was this ongoing intentional reaffirmation.
Wow. So the ritual wasn't the initial signing, it was the repeated renewal.
Exactly. That intentional repeated act, whether it's, ordering Chinese food in bed every Friday night or renewing a philosophical pact, that's what keeps the commitment feeling alive and conscious.
Okay, maybe the Chinese food is a bit more accessible for most people.
Probably easier, yeah.
Yeah.
But the underlying mechanism, it's identical. It's that recurring intentional reinforcement of the bond.
Lesson 1. Commitment needs ritualized reinforcement. What's lesson 2?
Lesson 2 is exclusivity. The ritual has to feel like it belongs just to us.
Unique to the couple.
Yes. And there's a great anecdote for this. The mug study.
Oh, yeah. Tell us about the mug study.
Okay, so people were basically asked to choose between two mugs. Mug A was higher quality. Mug B was lower quality.
Naturally, you'd pick mug A.
Right. But then they introduced a twist. They told some participants that their partner had already given the high-quality mug A to someone else, like an ex.
Ooh.
Suddenly, people started choosing the lower-quality mug B
Why?
because the meaning changed. Mug B, even though worse quality, now signaled relationship exclusivity. It hadn't been tainted by being given to someone else. They prioritized the symbol of uniqueness over objective quality.
Fascinating. The ritual or the object representing it has to feel special to the relationship.
It has to feel like ours.
Okay. Lesson 3.
Lesson 3 just hammers home that distinction we started with. Ritual versus routine.
Ah, back to meaning.
Exactly. Think about, say, a Saturday morning trip to the farmer's market. For one partner, it could just be a chore or routine.
Oh.
Got to get groceries.
Yep. Tick the box.
For the other partner, though, it might be this cherished ritual, symbolic of their shared life, their weekend together connection.
The highlight of the week, maybe?
Right. Same action, totally different meaning. And the sources warn that if couples are always waiting for those huge, extraordinary experiences, the big vacation, the grand gesture to feel connected, they miss the power of these small, everyday rituals that actually build that long-term stability and connection. The meaning transforms the activity.
Oh, that's crucial. And lesson 4, you said this one was maybe the most critical.
And honestly, kind of heartbreaking, it's consensus.
Consensus, meaning agreement.
Agreement on the meaning.
Oh.
If one partner sees an action, let's say date night, as this deep, meaningful ritual, symbolic of their love.
Okay.
But the other partner just sees it as a routine, an obligation, something to just get through.
Yeah.
The finding was stark. The couple experiences zero benefit from that action. None.
Wow. So even if they're doing the date night, if they don't agree it's a meaningful ritual, it doesn't actually help the relationship.
Exactly. The shared understanding, the consensus on its significance is everything. Without it, the magic, as one source put it, just isn't there.
That's huge.
Yeah.
And I guess for long-distance relationships, this becomes even more important.
Absolutely. When you don't have that day-to-day physical proximity, those intentional rituals like maybe leaving a small gift or a piece of clothing behind when you leave, or setting aside really specific times for video calls, not just random chats, but maybe like a show and tell with old photos, those become vital lifelines. They actively sustain the psychological bond across the distance.
Okay. Wow. So we've seen the power of ritual for individual stability, for relationship resilience. How on earth does this connect to something as, well, corporate and structured as organizational change management, OCM?
Yeah, where's the ritual in the corporate framework,
Right,
right?
right.
Well, this is the corporate ritual, in a way. When you have a massive organizational upheaval, like implementing a totally new software system across the entire company, or that Medicaid system example, you absolutely have to manage the people side of that change. You can't just flip a switch. OCM provides that structured, you could even say ritualized approach to guide people through, minimize resistance, and make sure the new ways of working actually stick.
Okay. So OCM is the structure, the ritual for corporate change. And the materials mention a specific model for the individual's journey through that change. ADK.
That's right. The PROSI ADK model is widely used, and it's really insightful because it outlines the sequence an individual typically needs to go through.
A sequence. Okay. What does ADK stand for? What are the steps?
It's an acronym for 5 essential building blocks.
Yeah.
A is for awareness.
Awareness of the need for change.
Exactly. Then D is for desire, the personal motivation to participate and support the change.
Okay.
K is for knowledge, knowing how to change. A is for ability, actually being able to implement the change, having the skills.
Makes sense.
And R is for reinforcement, things that make the change stick.
Awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, reinforcement. ADKAR.
And the key thing is it's sequential. You can't really move to the next stage effectively until the previous one is addressed.
So you can't expect someone to have the desire to change if they don't even have awareness of why it's necessary.
Precisely. Or you can't expect ability if they haven't been given the knowledge. It's this step-by-step, almost ritualized progression for the individual within the larger change.
Okay. So that's the individual's path. What about the organization as a whole? There was a model for that too, right? A 3-phase process?
Yes. That's the organizational level framework. Typically, it involves phase 1, preparing for change, getting ready, building the strategy. Phase 2, managing change, implementing the plans, communication, training. And phase 3, reinforcing change.
Reinforcing change. There's that R from ADKAR again.
Exactly. And this is where the corporate model really syncs up powerfully with those psychological findings about ritual and reinforcement we talked about earlier. Well, phase 3, reinforcement, is absolutely critical in OCM. Why? Because the natural human tendency, whether you're an individual or an organization, is to slide back, to revert to the old, comfortable ways of doing things.
Inertia is powerful.
Hugely powerful. So the OCM framework builds in a strategic system specifically for reinforcement. It's the final, essential corporate ritual needed to make sure the change doesn't just happen, but that it lasts.
Okay, so what does that reinforcement system actually look like in practice? Is it just like sending out a memo saying, good job?
Hopefully more than that. The OCM plans usually detail specific, structured reinforcement actions. Think planned celebrations of milestones.
Ah, like the celebrations dimension in the family study.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Also things like public rewards and recognition, formal feedback mechanisms, corrective actions if needed, and making performance visible, showing the results of the change.
So it's intentional, it's coordinated, it's positive. It sounds a lot like the mechanisms that built assertiveness and self-compassion in the family context. It's about intentional validation.
It really is. It's creating rituals around acknowledging progress and success to counteract that pullback to the old way.
You know, I was really struck by how one source specifically called out work anniversaries as a critical workplace ritual. That seems small, maybe?
But it's not small in its symbolism. Think about it.
Yeah.
Unlike a birthday, A work anniversary is purely a professional milestone.
Sure.
The employee's reflection on that day, their loyalty, their effort, the time invested, maybe sacrifices made, it's all tied directly to their experience with that company.
Right. It's a moment focused entirely on the employee-employer relationship.
Exactly. It's a perfect opportunity for a symbolic shared ritual of recognition and maybe even recommitment.
So ignoring it, that's basically failing to perform a key ritual.
Yes. It sends a message, intended or not, that the employee's investment, their loyalty, isn't seen or valued, and that absolutely damages morale and retention. The ritual stabilizes the bond. Ignoring it destabilizes it.
And just like the mug study showed us, exclusivity matters.
Right. The recognition has to feel meaningful, and maybe even a bit tailored, not just a generic email or a $5 gift card that everyone gets.
So maybe team celebrations, a specific shout out from the manager, peer-to-peer recognition, things that feel authentic.
Yes. It needs that sense of commitment from leadership, that feeling of exclusivity or specialness, and consensus. The management team has to agree it's important for the ritual to land effectively. Otherwise, it just feels like routine, going through the motions.
Wow, what a synthesis this has been. It really seems like whether we're looking at, young adults in India finding their footing through family celebrations, or partners keeping commitment alive by renewing a 2-year pact,
Right.
or we're examining a multi-phase corporate plan for a huge government tech overhaul, the underlying pattern holds.
It really does seem to. Intentional rituals provide that crucial structure and stability for human emotion, especially when things are in flux during transition and change.
That's the powerful takeaway, isn't it? Rituals are the mechanism of reinforcement when everything else feels chaotic.
Yeah. They act like these psychological anchors. They create meaning, they signal exclusivity, they require consensus, and all that helps build assertiveness, self-compassion, resilience.
The very things we need to navigate life's stresses and unavoidable organizational shifts.
Exactly. They help us push back against the chaos.
So the final thought then, for you listening, if we know that intentional shared rituals are proving to boost mental health in individuals and relationships, and also to ensure success in big, complex organizational changes, maybe consider this. What new ritual could you intentionally implement this week? It could be tiny, like 5 minutes of dedicated, focused conversation with someone important each weekday. Or maybe a new boundary you set for your professional time, making that predictable.
Something small but done intentionally, repeatedly. Introduce meaning to the repetition.
Find a way to reinforce stability in your own life through intentional action.
That's the idea.
That really was a deep dive. Until next time.